So what's next? More brain rot, more slop, more AI-generated nonsense? What is the plan here today?
None of that. We're not diving into that mess today.
Huh? What do you mean none of that? Are we switching it up for a change, or are we just doing nothing today?
You know, I'm so tired of every trend we talk about being garbage in some way. Whether it's AI-generated slop, pay-to-win schemes, or just straight-up disasters. I just want one thing that isn't a dumpster fire for once.
Well, I can definitely see that. I know how you feel after going through those Italian brain rot games. But hey, maybe we could try something a little more positive? Like, games that recreate older ones. You know, stuff that doesn't make us question humanity's entire existence.
Yeah, you know, that's not a terrible idea. It's a trend that doesn't immediately make me want to pull my hair out. But considering where that portal took us last time, I'm a little iffy about stepping into it again.
Well, I guess we'll just have to roll the dice and hope nothing goes wrong this time.
Alright, first game we're checking out today is Battle Ages. And thankfully, that portal didn't take me to anything brain rot related. I would have lost it if that happened. Anyway, back to business. I was pretty surprised to learn this game was inspired by Age of War, because when I first saw it, the first thing that popped into my head was the Battle Cats. Never heard of Age of War before, but considering the mechanics here, I'm just gonna assume that's the inspiration. The premise here is pretty straightforward. You generate currency, which is meat. Yep, you heard that right. The currency in this game is meat. Not sure why they went with this choice, honestly. I mean, they could have just gone with basic currency like coins or money, but nope. They went with the meat and called it a day. Wonderful. Oh, and fun fact, the game has a 58% like to dislike ratio. At first, that might seem a little confusing because nothing seems too wrong with it, but stick around, you'll see why. So why has it got that rating? Well, because in this game, you're basically guaranteed to lose. Here's the deal, you need to replay stages over and over to build up enough currency for upgrades. Once you get those upgrades, you might be able to beat the stage. It's kinda like Battle Cats, but it's cranked up to 11. It's not the worst thing, but it gets frustrating because there's no real strategy involved, just constant losing until you finally get good enough to win. And to top it all off, we're talking about the first stage here. And it already feels like I'm trying to beat an endgame boss. Like, really?
Ben, aren't you supposed to be more positive for this video? It's literally the first game and you're already losing it.
Oh yeah, right, my bad. Don't worry though, I'll try to stay more positive as we go on. So, in conclusion, while Battle Ages did try, it just feels way too difficult, especially for new players. It's not terrible, but it's definitely not beginner friendly. Alright, moving on to the next game, Karts. Now this one was honestly a really fun experience, and chaotic too. If you haven't played it, it's basically Mario Kart, but in Roblox. And when I say chaotic and fun, I mean chaotic and fun. This game's got all the classic Mario Kart power-ups. You know the drill, speed boosts, bananas, projectiles to throw at your enemies, and all that good stuff. Honestly, I'm kinda surprised this game averages less than 100 players because it's such a fun and hectic experience. If you've got friends playing with you, that's when the real chaos comes alive. Seriously though, Karts has a ton of potential. I really hope one day it gets the recognition it deserves because wow, I'm genuinely impressed. This is definitely the kind of game you should be playing during your downtime. It's just pure fun, and honestly, I was left amazed by how much enjoyment I got out of it. Well, I guess they can't all be winners, huh? Welcome to Plants Evolution. It's basically Blox Fruit, but with a Plants vs. Zombie skin slapped on for some extra flavor. You know the drill, break objects, defeat enemies, earn EXP and currency, level up, explore new worlds, same old routine.
Wait, Ben, isn't this just the same exact thing as Brain Rot Evolution? There's literally nothing different about it. It's just that game again, but with Plants vs. Zombies sprinkled on top. What are we even doing here?
Yeah, you're totally right on that one. Well, anyway, moving on to the next game. Alright, so, Seize. This one's based off that online horror game on Steam called R.E.P.O. I didn't really expect to see it get a remake on Roblox, but hey, I guess anything that's even a little bit popular has a 99% chance of being recreated here. Anyway, let's cut to the chase and dive straight into the chaos. Now, I've never played the original game, so I'm just going to do my best to break down what happens. You and your crew of friends basically have to navigate through some haunted place, and while you're at it, you've got to toss random objects into a shopping cart. Meanwhile, you're trying to avoid these strange wacky entities that are lurking around. My run didn't last too long though, me and my teammates got absolutely obliterated. I mean, it was over fast. As much as I'd love to try again, honestly, I'm not feeling a rematch right now, so let's just move on to the next game. Alright, so Five Nights at Freddy's 2 Reimagined. This one, honestly, it was really well crafted. The graphics, top tier for Roblox. Heck, it barely even looks like Roblox anymore. If you remove the UI, I'd probably be convinced this is on Steam or something. It's just that good. But anyways, let's talk about the gameplay. If you're familiar with Five Nights at Freddy's 2, you probably know the drill. Check the cameras, use your flashlight, and put on the mask whenever an animatronic gets close. Simple, right? Well, since this is the first night, you don't need to worry about Withered Foxy peeping through your mask just yet.
Wait, if that's the case, couldn't you just leave the mask on the whole time and beat the first night?
Well, sure, that could work, but that'd just ruin all the fun, and I'm not about to do that. I'm not gonna go all the way through the game though, so I'll just wrap up by beating the first night and call it there. But honestly, this game is really good, especially for Roblox. It's definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of the series. Alright, Liar's Table. This one had me kinda clueless to be honest. The whole round, I was just doing my best to figure out how the game works. So let me try to break down the original concept for you. So this game is actually based on the Steam game Liar's Bar. The setup's pretty simple. You join a table with 4 people and your goal is to lie without getting caught. Sounds simple enough, right? Now, as for my personal experience, yeah, I was just messing around, hoping for the best, and ended up losing in the end. Classic me. Honestly, I can't say this game's bad, it's just a little confusing if you're new to it. Once you get the hang of it, I'm sure it could be a fun time, but for now, I'm just left kinda scratching my head. Now, Unorthodox accounting was definitely a surprise, mostly because its UI looks suspiciously similar to Fighting's. But we're not here to talk about the menus, let's get into the meat of the game. This one's heavily inspired by the indie shooter ULTRAKILL. It's not a one-to-one recreation or anything, but it shares a ton of elements. The fast-paced combat, enemies spawning from every corner, and of course, the style meter that rewards you for absolute chaos. You've also got an ultimate attack that charges up as you wipe out enemies, and instead of a linear stage-based structure, this one plays out more like an endless wave-based roguelike, just non-stop action with no breathing room. Though I did find myself a little disappointed with the basic loadout at first. I was kinda stuck thinking there was no variety until...
Ben, you know you can press E to switch weapons, right?
Oh yeah, that would have been really nice to know earlier. Anyway, once I figured that out, things really opened up. You get access to a hyper laser gun, a rocket launcher, a subspace trip mine, and even your trusty old trowel makes a return as a melee weapon. All in all, this game is a total blast, and it's one of the few here and it's one of the few here I'd 100% replay again. Solid work. Speaking of one-to-one copies, let's talk about Balarox, a game clearly based on the indie roguelike Balatro. If you're unfamiliar with Balatro, no problem, here's a quick explanation. Balatro is a roguelike deck builder where you're given a hand of cards and your goal is to play combinations that earn you points. To create high scoring combos, you typically need multiple cards of the same value or suit. The better the combo, the more points you earn. If your current hand isn't ideal, the game provides discards, which allow you to throw away your current hand for a chance to draw a better one. Both hands and discards are limited per round, so you need to use them strategically. Once you defeat a blind, which functions as a boss encounter, you can cash out your score and use the currency you've earned to buy upgrades that help in future rounds. It's a loop that rewards planning and consistent decision making. Unfortunately, I ended up losing to the wall blind, so I decided to wrap up my session there. That said, this is a well-made remake of the original game. However, if you're able to, buying the actual game on Steam would offer a more complete experience. Welp, that's that. Game recreations on Roblox. The games we played today were honestly really well made and fun to check out. Well, most of them. That said, if the developers behind these games ever came up with original concepts of their own, they'd probably knock it out of the park. The amount of polish and effort in some of these projects? Actually wild. Unorthodox Accounting, Karts, and Five Nights at Freddy's 2 Reimagined were all standouts. Clear passion, solid gameplay, and worth your time. Some of these games were so fun, I genuinely go back and replay them. And that kinda gives me hope, you know? Despite the endless flood of low-effort junk, there are still devs on Roblox putting real love and care into what they make. Sure, not every game we played was a banger, but the genre itself? Totally worth diving into. Anyway, Gold Knight, any final words?
Not really, I'm just glad I didn't have to sit through Italian brain rot or something. That would have driven me completely insane.
Yup, but with all that said, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.